Oh, 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 oh. God does not make mistakes. He does not place one skin above another, one soul above another. To hate a man for his color is to deny the hand of the Creator himself.
The day I found him, he was just a newborn, crying alone beside his lifeless mother in the tall grass. The world expected me to walk away, but I didn't. I picked him up, and from that moment, my life changed forever. If you believe love is stronger than hate, and if you've ever wanted to see justice served against prejudice, then hit that like button right now. Subscribe and stay with me, because what I'm about to share is not just my story. It's proof that love can defeat racism, cruelty, and even death itself. I was 29 years old when it happened. A farmer, yes, but more than that, a man still trying to understand what life meant. The year was 1963, and I was out in the fields one morning, plowing with my old tractor. The sun had just begun its climb, painting the Virginia sky in streaks of gold and pink. That's when I heard it, a sound that did not belong. A cry, high-pitched, desperate. At first, I thought it was an animal caught in the brush. But the more I listened, the more my chest tightened. This was no animal. This was the cry of a baby. I shut down the tractor, the rumble fading into silence. My boots sank into the soft dirt as I walked toward the sound, every step making my heart pound harder. The crop stood tall, 6, maybe 7 feet, and the cry echoed, bouncing, confusing. But then I saw him, a baby, wrapped only in a thin cloth, his little chest heaving, his fists clenched as if he was already fighting the world. Beside him lay his mother, a young black woman, her body still, her eyes closed forever. Later the sheriff would say she had been bitten by a rattlesnake. Out here in the dark of night, without anyone to help, she never had a chance, and explained that rattlesnake venom is highly poisonous, and without immediate treatment, it can be fatal. Sadly, that's what happened that night. She didn't get the help she needed in time. I remember standing there frozen, the earth spinning under my feet. The baby cried louder, his little face red from effort, his mouth wide as if begging me not to leave him. My throat burned, my stomach twisted. I had no children of my own. Mary and I had tried. God knows we had, but the Lord had not blessed us in that way. And here, in the middle of my field, was a child with no one. I called the police, did what I was supposed to do. They came, they investigated. They tried to find family, neighbors, anyone who might know this woman. But nothing. She was a stranger to these parts. To this day, I still wonder what brought her here. Was she fleeing something? Searching for hope? I'll never know. What I do know is that the baby had no one, and I couldn't look at him and see anything but a son. When I carried him home that day, wrapped in my jacket, Mary met me on the porch. Her eyes widened, her lips parted in shock. I'll never forget the way she covered her mouth with both hands and whispered, "Oh, John, oh, my Lord." I told her everything, every detail, and then I asked her, what should we do? She didn't answer right away. She just reached out, took the baby from my arms, and cradled him against her chest. And in that moment, seeing the way his tiny face relaxed, how he quieted in her embrace, I knew her answer. We went through the legal process, the paperwork, the endless questions from officials who couldn't understand why a white couple would take in a black child. But we stood firm. To us, he wasn't a black baby. He was our baby, our son. The community, that was another story. The whispers began almost immediately. Family members calling us foolish, neighbors shaking their heads, some saying cruel things I won't repeat. But I remember what Mary said to me one night when the voices outside our home grew too loud. "John, let them talk. This house will be our fortress, and inside it, he will know only love." And she was right. Inside those walls, our son knew nothing but warmth. We rocked him to sleep, bathed him gently, laughed at his little faces, his first steps, his first words. I remember one night when he reached for me and said, "Daddy." My heart nearly burst. Still, life outside wasn't kind. Schools wouldn't admit him. Children in town wouldn't play with him. Sometimes even shopkeepers gave us looks of disgust. But every time the world tried to push him down, we lifted him higher. When one door closed, we built our own door. When no teacher would take him, Mary taught him at the kitchen table. Reading, writing, even French. Day by day, year by year, he grew. Stronger, smarter, handsome, a young man full of fire and kindness both. And through it all, we knew the world might not accept him, but we always would. That was the beginning. That was how I became the father of a boy the world tried to discard, and how, in return, he became the greatest gift of my life. Raising a child is never easy. But raising our child, well, it was a battle against the world. From the moment our son could walk, we noticed the stares. At church, people whisper behind him books. At the general store, they pretended not to notice, but their eyes followed us sharp as knives. A white couple with a black boy in 1960s Virginia? To them, it wasn't just unusual, it was an offense. I remember one Sunday morning, walking into church with Mary holding our boy's hand. He was about 4 years old then, dressed in a tiny suit Mary had sewn from leftover cloth. His shoes were polished, his little hair combed neatly. He looked like an angel to me. But as we entered, the room fell silent. Men shifted uncomfortably in their pews. Women pressed their lips tight. I could hear the unspoken words. "He doesn't belong here." Then the pastor cleared his throat, avoiding my eyes. "Brother John," he said cautiously, "perhaps it's best if perhaps today you worship at home." I still feel the heat in my chest from that moment. My son, too young to understand, tugged at my sleeve and whispered, "Daddy, why can't we go in?" How do you answer that? How do you explain to a child that the world doesn't see him as you do? I knelt down, took his small hand in mine, and said softly, "Son, you and I, we don't need a building to talk to God. God hears us anywhere." And so we turned around. But inside, I was boiling. Not at God, but at men who dare to twist his name into an excuse for hate. It only grew harder as he got older. At school, the one Mary and I fought tooth and nail to get him into, the cruelty was sharper. Children mimicked him, mocked his skin, excluded him from games. Some teachers even looked the other way, as if bullying him was natural order. One day, when he was 8, he came home with torn clothes and blood on his lip. Mary rushed him, horrified, while I demanded, "What happened?" He hesitated, then whispered, "They called me names, Daddy, said I wasn't supposed to be here." My heart cracked. I wanted to march into that school and shake every parent, every teacher who allowed this. But instead, I sat with him on the porch that night, the cicadas humming in the dark, and I told him, "Son, the world may tell you don't belong, but listen to me, you belong everywhere. Don't let them shrink you. Don't let them break you. You're my son. You're strong. And one day they'll see what I see." His eyes, big, brown, and filled with questions, locked on mine. And in that gaze, I saw both his pain and his growing fire. But even my words couldn't shield him from everything. There were days when he came home and locked himself in his room. refusing to eat. Nights when Mary and I heard him crying into his pillow. She would press her hand to her chest and whisper, "Lord, give him strength. Give us strength." It wasn't only the children. Adults carried their poison openly. Once at the market, a man spat near our son's shoes. "Ain't right," he muttered. "Ain't natural." I stepped in front of my boy so fast my vision blurred. "Say another word." I growled, my fists trembling at my sides. "Just one more word." The man sneered but backed away. Still, the damage was done. My son had seen it. And that's the thing about racism. It's not just the words, it's the humiliation, the erosion of dignity, the constant reminder that no matter how good, how kind, how deserving you are, the world sees you as less. But Mary and I fought back with love. We celebrated every achievement, no matter how small. When he read his first book cover to cover, we clapped like he'd won a medal. When he painted his first picture, a bright sunrise, all reds and oranges, we framed it and hung it in the living room. We wanted him to know, in this house, you are cherished. In this family, you are everything. And slowly, that love began to build armor around his heart. Still, the questions came. One evening, he was about 10, he sat at the kitchen table with his homework untouched. Finally, he looked up and asked, "Daddy, why am I different?" The question pierced me like a blade. I set down my cup, searching for words. "Different?" I asked carefully. He touched his skin, then looked at mine. "Different like this. Why don't I look like you and Mama?" Silence stretched. Mary and I had known this day would come. We had rehearsed answers, prayed for wisdom. I leaned forward, my voice low but steady. "Son, God paints with many colors. And when he made you, he chose the richest one. You don't look like me on the outside, but you are my son. You're ours. Nothing changes that." His eyes searched mine, tears glistening. "But people, they hate me for it." I took his hands, squeezing gently. "Then we'll show them love so powerful it will shame their hate. One day, you'll prove them wrong. One day, they'll see your worth."
Oh, 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 oh. God does not make mistakes. He does not place one skin above another, one soul above another. To hate a man for his color is to deny the hand of the Creator himself.
That night, after he went to bed, Mary and I sat together in silence. She wiped tears from her cheeks and whispered, "He's too young to carry such a burden." I nodded, my jaw tight. "Yes, but he's already stronger than most men I know." And it was true, because no matter what they threw at him, he never stopped trying. He studied harder. He worked harder. He smiled when others might have broken. But deep down, I knew a storm was brewing, and the day would come when his patience and mine would be tested in ways neither of us could yet imagine. My son grew quickly, and with every passing year, his energy filled our farm with new life. By the time he was a young boy, I had already started teaching him the ways of the land. He would ride beside me on the tractor, his little hands gripping the steering wheel as though he'd been born to guide it. His laughter echoed across the fields, and my wife and I would often sit on the porch just to watch him. There was joy in his eyes, a freedom that reminded us of the simple beauty of life. We shared so many mornings together. Sometimes, while he worked the fields, my wife and I set a long wooden table under the open sky and filled it with fresh bread, butter, fruits, eggs, and steaming cups of tea. Those brunches were simple, but to us they felt like feasts made rich not by food but by family. My son would wave at us from the tractor, and we'd call him over to join. His smile, bright and full of youth, was the sweetest blessing. But one morning, joy turned suddenly to fear. As we laughed and called out to him to take a break, my son's voice suddenly broke through with urgency. "Mom, don't move. A rattlesnake is right behind you." The words froze us. My wife sat stiff in her chair, her face pale. In a heartbeat, my boy leapt off the tractor, his boots hitting the soil with a thud. Without hesitation, he grabbed a long stick leaning near the fence. With fearless strength and steady hands, he pressed the stick against the snake, forcing it back. The rattler hissed and coiled, but he didn't waver. He pushed harder, guiding the creature away from the table until it finally slithered back into the tall grass and disappeared into the fields. When it was over, silence hung heavy in the air. My wife trembled as I rushed to her side, and then we both turned to our son. He was breathing hard, but his eyes were steady. In that moment, I realized two things. His bravery had become a shield for us, and deep inside, he carried the memory of his real mother, who had lost her life to the same danger. Protecting us was his way of honoring her, though he had never truly known her. We embraced him tightly, and I felt my heart swell with pride. He was no longer just our boy. He was becoming a young man, strong, protective, and bound to us by something deeper than blood. Life on the farm went on, filled with more lessons and more laughter. I taught him how to guide the tractor through furrows, how to plow the soil with patience, and how to milk our cows with gentle hands. On Sundays, we walked together to market, selling crops and milk, laughing at jokes along the way, sometimes even singing old songs of the era. And every day, in small ways, he proved not just his strength, but his heart. Teenage years are hard enough for any boy, but for my son, they were a battlefield. By the time he was 13, he had outgrown Mary's hand-sewn suits and started wearing jeans and boots like me. His shoulders broadened, his voice deepened, and with every inch he grew taller. The world seemed to grow harsher. It wasn't just whispers anymore. It was open hostility. I'll never forget the day he came home with a black eye. His books were torn, his knuckles scraped. Mary ran to him in horror, her apron still dusted with flour. "What happened?" she cried. He dropped his bag on the floor, his chest heaving. "They jumped me, 5 of them. 5!" My own voice shook with rage. He nodded, blood on his lip. "They said I didn't belong at their school, that I should go back where I came from." Mary covered her mouth, tears filling her eyes. I clenched my fists so hard my nails dug into my palms. "And what did you do?" For a moment, his face softened. Then with quiet pride, he said, "I fought back." Something inside me twisted. I didn't want my boy to become hardened, to meet hate with hate. But I also knew the truth. If he didn't stand up for himself, they'd crush him. That night, I sat on the porch with him, the cool summer air buzzing with cicadas. He stared out at the fields, silent, bruised but unbroken. "Son," I began slowly, "you're going to face battles in life. Some you can win with your fists, others only with your heart. You got to know the difference." He didn't answer right away. Finally, he turned to me, his eyes glinting. "But, Daddy, what if they never stop?" I looked at him, really looked, at the strength building in him, at the fire growing hotter every day. Then I said, "You show them you're unbreakable." As he grew older, the challenges only multiplied. At 15, he applied for a summer job at the local hardware store. He was strong, capable, eager to work. But when he walked in for the interview, the owner looked him up and down, sneered, and said, "We don't hire his kind." My boy walked out, shoulders stiff, jaw clenched. That night at dinner, he barely touched his food. Mary tried to comfort him, but he pushed away her hand. Why even try, Mama? They'll never see me as good enough. I leaned forward, my voice steady but firm. Son, listen to me. Don't you ever let someone else's blindness make you doubt your worth. If one door shuts, we'll build our own damn door. He met my eyes, something sparking in him. Then I'll build it big enough for others too. Those words stuck with me. It wasn't just defiance anymore. It was vision. But vision alone doesn't shield you from pain. By 17, he was excelling in school despite everything thrown at him. He loved books, especially history. He'd sit late into the night, reading about leaders who had stood against impossible odds. Harriet Tubman, Frederick Douglass, Martin Luther King Jr. He read their words out loud sometimes, his voice strong in the quiet house. One evening, after finishing a speech by Dr. King, he closed the book and whispered, "Daddy, maybe one day I can speak like this. Maybe I can make people listen." I smiled, pride swelling in my chest. Son, you already have a voice. The world just doesn't know it yet. Still, not everyone admired his strength. Some feared it. One night, he was walking home from school when a truck slowed beside him. Inside were 3 men, older, their faces twisted with malice. They shouted slurs, cruel and sharp, then threw a bottle that shattered at his feet. He came home shaken, fists trembling with rage. "Why do they hate me so much, Daddy?" he demanded, pacing the kitchen floor. My own anger burned hot, but I forced myself to stay calm. Because, son, hate is a sickness. It blinds them. But I placed my hands on his shoulders. You must not let it blind you, too. He swallowed hard, his chest rising and falling. One day, I'll make them see. One day, they'll regret every word. And in that moment, I knew my son's pain was forging him into something powerful, something unstoppable. But perhaps the moment that tested us most came during his senior year. There was a debate competition, a big one, statewide. My boy had worked for months, studying, writing, practicing. His topic? Equality under God. When he stood on that stage, tall and proud, his voice filled the auditorium. God does not make mistakes. He does not place one skin above another, one soul above another. To hate a man for his color is to deny the hand of the Creator himself. I sat in the audience, my heart thundering with pride. He spoke with a power beyond his years, each word striking like a hammer. When he finished, the room erupted in applause, except for a handful of judges, older men with stony faces. And when the results came in, despite his brilliance, he was placed second, behind a white boy whose speech was half as strong. My son stood tall, hiding his disappointment, but I saw it. I saw the flicker in his eyes. Later, on the drive home, he was silent. Finally, he muttered, "No matter what I do, they'll never give me first place." I gripped the wheel, anger boiling. Then, son, don't chase their trophies. Build your own. One day, you'll stand so high no one can deny you. He turned to me, a slow smile forming. You really believe that? With every breath of my body, I said, and that was the night he stopped seeing himself as a victim. That was the night he began to see himself as a leader.
Oh, 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 oh. God does not make mistakes. He does not place one skin above another, one soul above another. To hate a man for his color is to deny the hand of the Creator himself.
By the time he graduated, I knew my son's journey had only just begun. but already I could feel it. The world was about to hear his voice, and God help anyone who tried to silence it. When my boy turned 18, I felt pride swelling in my chest like a river ready to burst its banks. He stood taller than me now, broad shoulders, steady gaze, the kind of presence that made even grown men pause. But the world wasn't ready to pause for him. He wanted to go to college. Mary and I encouraged it, saved every penny, sold extra crops, even dipped into the little savings we had tucked away. He filled out the applications, wrote essays full of hope and brilliance. And then the letters came, one after another, thin envelopes, rejections. Some gave polite excuses, limited capacity, high competition. Others didn't bother with excuses at all. We knew the truth. One evening, I found him sitting on the porch steps, letters scattered around him like fallen leaves. His jaw was tight, his eyes hollow. "They won't take me, Daddy," he muttered. "Doesn't matter what grades I got. Doesn't matter how hard I worked." I sat beside him, my bones heavy with age, but my spirit sharp. "Son, a piece of paper doesn't decide your future. You do." He looked at me, searching. "But how, Daddy? How do I fight a world that won't even let me in the door?" I placed my hand on his shoulder. Then we build our own door, just like we always said. Instead of college, he took to working full-time on the farm with me. We plowed fields side by side, our sweat mixing with soil, our laughter rising with the sun. But farming wasn't his dream. I could see it in his eyes. He wanted more. He wanted to lead, to teach, to rise above the land that tried to hold him down. One afternoon, after delivering milk to the town market, we stopped by the community center. Inside, a group of children sat huddled, their clothes worn, their notebooks empty. No teacher, no guide, just waiting. My son paused, watching them. "Where's their teacher?" he asked a woman nearby. She sighed. "Quit last week. Couldn't handle the pay or the stares." Something lit up in my boy's eyes. He walked over, knelt down, and began talking to the children. Within minutes, they were laughing, leaning in, their little hands reaching for his. That night, at the dinner table, he said, "Daddy, maybe college doesn't want me, but these kids, they do. They need me." Mary and I exchanged a look. Pride, fear, hope, all tangled. And from that day on, he began teaching them. Basic math, reading, history, whatever he could. He borrowed books, wrote lessons late into the night, poured himself into those children like water into parched soil. But not everyone liked it. Some townsfolk sneered as they passed the center. "Why waste time on them?" they muttered. Others mocked him openly. One day, a group of older men came to the farm while I was working. Their leader, a broad-shouldered man with cold eyes, spat into the dirt. "You'd do better keeping that boy of yours in line," he growled. "Teaching's no job for his kind." My blood boiled. I stepped closer, my voice low and steady. "My son will stand taller than any of you, and you'll choke on your words when he does." The men laughed, but I saw the flicker of unease in their eyes, because deep down they knew. As months passed, my son's reputation grew. Parents whispered about the young man who taught for free. Children adored him. Even some who once mocked him began to soften, their prejudice cracking against the weight of his kindness. But still, the weight of racism was heavy. One Sunday, he was invited to speak at the local church. Nervous but determined, he stood at the pulpit, hands steady on the wood. "My father always told me," he began, his voice clear, "that hate is blindness. And if you live blind, you will stumble all your life. But if you open your eyes to love, you will see the path God has set before you." The congregation was silent. Then, slowly, applause. Not everyone clapped, but enough to plant seeds. Afterward, an older woman approached him. tears in her eyes. My husband never listened to anyone about these matters. But today he listened. That night, my son sat at the table, head bowed. "Daddy," he whispered, "maybe my place is in their schools. Maybe my place is in their hearts." And I knew then he was finding his calling. Still, the world wasn't finished testing him. One bitter winter evening, he was stopped by police while walking home. No reason given, just suspicion. They searched him, questioned him, treated him like a criminal. I arrived at the scene, fury burning in my chest. "He's my son," I barked. "He's done nothing wrong." The officer sneered. "Doesn't matter. He fits the description." I stepped between them, my voice like steel. "The only description he fits is a good man. My son, and you'll remember that." Eventually, they let him go, but the damage lingered. That night, I found him sitting silently, staring at his hands. "Why, Daddy?" he whispered. "Why do they see me as less?" I swallowed hard, fighting tears. "Because they don't see you at all. But one day they will. And when they do, they'll see more than they can handle." By his early 20s, my boy had become more than a farmer's son. He was a leader. People came to him for advice, for guidance, for hope. But I could feel it. Something greater was calling him. And though I feared for battles he would face, I also knew the world could not silence him forever, because a fire had been lit, and that fire was about to spread. Mary's laughter had always been the heartbeat of our home. Soft, steady, full of light. But one spring morning, the laughter stopped. She had been in the kitchen, humming as she stirred a pot of soup. I stepped out to the fields, the sun warm on my shoulders. When I came back, I found her slumped against the counter, her hand still clutching the spoon. My heart stopped. We rushed her to the doctor, but it was no use. Her heart had given out. Just like that, the woman who had carried our family through storms was gone. I remember standing by her grave, the earth fresh, the air heavy with silence. My son stood beside me, his broad shoulders shaking, his face streaked with tears he didn't bother to hide. "She was the only one who believed in me from the start," he whispered, voice cracking. I placed a trembling hand on his back. "No, son, we both did, and she still believes in you, even now." He nodded, swallowing hard. But in his eyes I saw it, a promise, a vow to live in a way that would make her proud. But as he grew stronger, I grew weaker. My days of plowing fields were long gone. Breathing grew harder. My bones ached constantly. I knew my time was coming to an end. One evening, I asked him to sit with me on the porch. The sun was sinking low, painting the sky with gold. "Son," I said, my voice thin, "the years have been kind, but they're catching up with me." He shook his head quickly. "Don't talk like that, Daddy." I smiled faintly. "I have to, because when my time comes, I need you to know something." His eyes met mine, dark and steady. "You've been the greatest blessing of my life. Greater than wealth, greater than land, greater than anything. And when I'm gone, I want you to carry this truth with you. Family is not bound by blood. It's bound by love. Always." His jaw tightened, his throat working as he swallowed. "I promise, Daddy. I'll carry it." Not long after, I wrote him a letter. My hand shook as I penned the words, but my heart was clear. "If you're hearing this, son, it means I've gone home. Don't grieve for me too long. Instead, live. Live boldly. Live with love. And build something that will outlast both of us." I sealed the letter, knowing one day it would guide him when my voice could not. And then the day came. I slipped away quietly in my sleep, Mary's memory warm in my dreams. The next time my son's story was told, it was not by me. It was at the inauguration of the orphanage he had built, with his own 2 hands, with his strength, with his heart. a place where children of every color, every background, would find shelter, education, and care. The building bore our names, mine and Mary's, a testament to the love that had built his life. On the day of the opening, the town gathered. My son stood tall on the stage, dressed in a simple but proud suit, his voice strong and steady. He unfolded a piece of paper, my letter, and with the crowd silent, he began to read. "If you're hearing this," he read, his voice thick with emotion, "it means I've gone home. My son, I raise you to be strong not just in body but in spirit. And today, seeing what you've built, I know my life was fulfilled. Remember always, God created all of us, white and black, rich and poor. To hate a man for his skin is to insult the Creator himself. Love is greater than color. Family is greater than blood. Humanity is above all." He paused, his chest rising and falling, tears brimming in his eyes. And then, with a steady breath, he looked out at the crowd and spoke in his own voice. "My father may be gone, but his words live in me. And this place, this orphanage, will live as proof. No child will be left abandoned. No soul will be judged by skin. Here, love is the only law." The crowd erupted in applause. Some wept openly. Even those who had once mocked us stood silent, humbled. And at that moment, my son was no longer just my boy. He was a beacon, a light in a world too long divided by darkness. As his words echoed through the village, I like to believe Mary and I were there in spirit, smiling through the tears, because our story had come full circle. We had adopted a helpless baby, and he had grown into a man who would carry our love and his own light into the world forever. Years passed after the orphanage first opened its doors. What began as one building with cracked walls and the scent of fresh paint soon blossomed into a sanctuary. Children from every corner of the region came, abandoned babies left on doorsteps, young ones who had lost parents to sickness, teenagers who had nowhere else to turn. And for each of them, the orphanage became more than a roof. It became a home. My son, no, by now the world knew him by name, not just as a black boy, but as Mr. Samuel Carter, was there every single day. He walked the halls, checking the classrooms. He laughed with the children during playtime. He sat by the sickbeds when fever struck. And every night, when the halls grew quiet, he would walk alone into the little chapel at the back of the orphanage. There, beneath the wooden cross his father once carved, Samuel would kneel, and he would whisper, "Daddy, Mama, I'm still carrying your love. I hope I'm making you proud." The community that once looked down on him began to change. At first, people came out of curiosity. Some whispered, "Can a black man really run something like this?" But as the years passed, those whispers turned to admiration. They saw the lives transformed. They saw children growing into educated, kind-hearted young adults. Some of those same children went on to become doctors, teachers, pastors, and even lawmakers. And every single one of them carried with them the seed of love Samuel had planted, the same seed his parents once planted in him. One day, a man came to visit. He was older now, with gray hair and a bent back. But Samuel recognized him instantly. It was Mr. Wallace, the neighbor who once sneered and said, "That black boy will never amount to anything." The old man's eyes were watery, his voice weak. "I came to apologize," he whispered, removing his hat. "I judged you by the color of your skin, not the content of your heart. And now, seeing what you've built, I was wrong." Samuel stood in silence for a long moment. Then he extended his hand. "You weren't just wrong about me," he said softly. "You were wrong about love. But it's never too late to change." The old man gripped his hand tightly, tears slipping down his face. And in that moment, an old wound in the community began to heal. As the years went on, Samuel grew older. His once strong frame now leaned on a cane, his steps slower. But his voice never lost its power. Each year, on the anniversary of the orphanage's founding, he would gather the children, and now, even their children, in the courtyard, and he would tell the same story. Once upon a time, a poor farmer and his wife found a baby boy in the fields. They could have walked away, but instead they chose love, and that love became the foundation of everything you see here today. The children would sit wide-eyed, their little hearts swelling with the magic of it, and Samuel would always end the story with the words his father left him. Family is not bound by blood. It's bound by love. In his final years, Samuel sat down to write his own memoir. He titled it, My Black Son, A Story of Love Beyond Color. He wrote every word with trembling hands but steady conviction. He wrote about Mary, the mother whose smile held the house together. He wrote about the father who stood against the whispers of the town, choosing love over prejudice. He wrote about the struggles, the bullying, the insults, the doubt. And he wrote about the triumph, the day he proved that love could build an empire greater than hate. The book spread far beyond his town. Colleges studied it. Churches preached from it. Families quoted it around dinner tables. And then one quiet evening, Samuel took his final breath. He was surrounded not by loneliness, but by dozens of children, some grown, some still small, all of them calling him Papa. The orphanage bells rang out that night, not in mourning, but in gratitude, because Samuel Carter had lived not just a life, but a legacy at his funeral. The largest the town had ever seen, a banner stretched across the orphanage gates. It read, Love Beyond Color, the Carter Legacy. And as the people, black, white, rich, poor, gathered to say goodbye, a hush fell over the crowd. One of the children, now a young man studying law, stepped forward. He stood tall before the coffin and raised his voice. Mr. Carter taught us that love can change the world, and we will carry his torch forward. This orphanage is not the end of the story. It is the beginning of ours. The crowd erupted in applause, tears flowing freely, because they all knew it was true. Years later, the orphanage had grown into a network of homes, schools, and community centers across the country. They carried one motto, engraved in every hall, every plaque, every book. Family is not bound by blood. It's bound by love. And so, the story that began with a poor farmer finding a black baby in the fields ended with that baby changing the world. Not with hate, not with revenge, but with the one weapon strong enough to break every chain. Love.
I was told my love was wrong, that a child like him did not belong. Whispers burned, but I held him near. Through the shame, through the fear. God does not make mistakes. He does not place one skin above another, one soul above another. To hate a man for his color is to deny the hand of Creator himself. We are one, we are his breath. We rise in love beyond life and death. Fields were harsh, the nights were long, but in his laughter I grew strong. The world looked down, but I could see he was the light God placed in me. does not make mistakes. He does not place one skin above another, one soul above another. Hate a man for his color, to deny it, and the Creator himself. We are one, we are his breath. We rise in love beyond life and death. Through every storm, through every tear, a voice kept calling, calm and clear. Love is greater, love will remain. It is stronger than the world's disdain. God does not make mistakes. He does not place one skin above another, one soul above another. To hate a man for his colors, to deny the and the Creator himself. We are one, we are his breath. We rise in love beyond life and death. One Creator, one design. Your heart is his and mine. No color, no chain, no hate can sever. We are his children forever.
Justice is not revenge. It is the courage to see another life as valuable as your own. When one heart suffers, humanity remembers. When one voice rises, millions are awakened.